Well, good morning. How are you? Can you guys give me an audio check, please? Make sure everybody can hear me. Is the volume okay? Because I'm not sure if you guys. Okay, I'm starting to see some of you. All right. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right. So, anyway, hope you're all doing well. If you're in the States, been affected by the storm, we got about 6 inches or so right now. 6 inches of light powder. So we'll see what we get in terms of total accumulation. Obviously, as the title suggested, nothing here is going to be trade related. So if you're like a purist, you're only interested in what I have to talk about in regards to the markets and whatever, it's probably going to be very boring for you. And I promise I'm not going to be here very long. My wife's in the other room and she asked how long I'm going to be. So we're probably going to catch a movie or something downstairs in the theater. So I just wanted to touch base with y'all. I will say this in regards to like the gold market and silver. I'm not sure what Twitter Space Kit and company were doing. I joined in. I was talking to somebody. I don't know who it was exactly. And forgive me. I don't mean to be somewhat of someone trying to just dismiss or whoever it was. Is I talked to a lot of people when I'm on those things, and I don't remember who exactly it was. But he's got the recordings. I'm sure you guys can go take a look at it. He's real good at finding out where things were said in the past. So I talked about how, and also during my mentorship when I was doing paid mentorship, which I'm not doing, by the way. I've been getting a lot of folks emailing me saying, I just spoke to you on Telegram and you didn't. I'm not going to talk to you in direct message. I'm not going to do that. So as soon as someone asks for money, you know that that's a scammer. I'm not going to ask for your money. So I talked about how silver and gold were going to be at these levels. Okay. And one of the primary reasons was that because of everything that they did during the COVID scamdemic, yeah, we're going to go there. All of that was a huge wealth transfer. And also, a lot of people have been given something they're going to find out soon enough that they should have never done it. And that transfer of wealth was done in a broad brush approach across all markets. And fundamentally, silver has been suppressed for decades. Like it should be way higher than it is right now. And gold should be as well. But if you go back and look at March 2020, that was a significant opportunity for everyone to be a participant in that. And my mentorship students will tell you, all those that were in every user group where I spoke to them and told them this is what was going to go up. These markets are reflecting not only the fundamental drivers, like the batteries that's going into cell phones, things that are large commercial uses of silver. That's what's being implemented here. I kind of talked about that years ago, and now everybody's jumping on board because it's obvious. Because they look at the chart and they want to go back in time and look at what were things being discussed back then, and they can now, but it's not useful to anyone now that we're at these levels. So I tweeted the other day. I said, if anyone doesn't take some measure of profit here, it would be uncivilized because it's had a parabolic run. I don't suspect that it's done because the underlying fundamental drivers behind why silver and gold are up hasn't changed, and they're not likely to change in the near future. So we have huge wars, on the horizon. We have a currency war where the BRICS nations are trying to unseat the dollar index or the greenback rather, the dollar, off of the global reserve status. And their pursuit is to have a gold-backed currency, which, I've always said, all we have to do is go back to that, and no one's doing anything. No one's going to defeat the dollar if they do that. The problem with that is them, quote unquote, them. They like to have imaginary money. Okay, imaginary money where they can just keep creating and printing more of it, print more of it, print more of it. It's an imaginary commodity. They can produce as much as they want, write off, as many dollar bills as they want, and they'll still charge us taxes. So if they can print as much money as they want to, why do we get charged taxes? It's for control. So the idea of silver being topped here or gold topping at 5,000, can we have a measurable retracement that's technically sound in both of those markets? Sure, absolutely. I would not in any way, shape, or form try to predict the top or market. I went on the record with Bitcoin, and I know a lot of you like to have fun with me and rib me, and I rib all you back there in the crypto markets. But my students will tell you that I've called every major run in Bitcoin, up and down. Ultimately, yes, I have not changed my mind. It will ultimately go to zero. Okay, it will go to zero once you find out what's eventually going to materialize. No one will want it. Okay, I'll just say that. Okay, and there's better moves and better markets than that. And I think it's seen its best days. And I said that the highest it would go is 126, 127. That's 127,000, by the way. And you look at your charts and you see that. Go out there and fact check me. Ask my students to see if I said that or not. Okay, because these are things that I said behind a paywall, and some things I talked in public, but this I know for certain I said. And I don't think that silver's done. I don't think that gold's done. But I do believe that we're going to see a banking crisis, because not only is there one bank that now is being talked about where they are holding a heavy short position, and the Fed had to come in overnight and bail them out. They had a margin call that they didn't answer, and that's problematic. So I got about $25,000 in that bank that I intend to take out this coming week. So that way I'm not exposed to anything that may come as a result of them. And I'm talking about JP Morgan Chase. They're the bank that individuals now are now starting to whisper and talk about how, are they in trouble financially? Are they? So if the common people are talking about it, when I say common, I mean, just like when I look at YouTubers that are quote unquote mentors, traders, influencers, all the people that have a following. I love watching them because I want to tap into their audience. And I'm thankful that they have their little chat window open, because I could care less what they're talking about, because 99% of the time what they're talking about, the market is absolutely diametrically opposed to me. And I'm right about where the market's going to go. And they're out there losing money. So I'm not interested in their technical analysis. I'm interested in the following that they have, their audience. And whenever they are highly opinionated, when they're really, I know you're probably thinking, wait a minute, this said not trade related, and all you're doing is talking about the markets. You must be new around here. The idea of having a high opinionated chat forum where people are free to say whatever they want to say. Now, granted, obviously, there's a lot of people out there that believe their singular voice going out there and saying, yeah, Bitcoin's going to go this, or XRP is going to do this, that, and the other thing, or some other market that they hope they can get somebody to, push behind them and kind of like talk it up, if you will. I love seeing those types of things in trade-related channels that live stream. I love that. I love seeing that, because if I can time my idea about where the market's going to go higher or lower, and if it's diametrically opposed to those individuals collectively, not just one joker in a chat window, but I want to see if other people chime in and say, yeah, I'm looking for the same thing. And if it's like a change in the sentiment, or the attention is shifted, while the live streamer is doing whatever they're doing, if the conversation really starts to sway in, well, what do you think about that? And where would you buy? Where would you short it now? As soon as I start seeing those things, and if I'm diametrically opposed to that, I got about a 99.9% likelihood that I'm going to be right on my next trade. And that's just the facts. The point is I'm looking at the sentiment, the opinion of someone that if they knew how to trade, they wouldn't be in there watching another live streamer. They would just simply be trading. And I'm listening for this low IQ opinion. Now, I don't mean that to be condescending. I'm saying that this person clearly doesn't have the aptitude to know what to do as a trader, where the market's going to go next, because if they did, they wouldn't waste their time being in another person's live stream, hoping to get breadcrumbs from their table and even entertain their opinion about where they think the market's going to go. I'm there to see the moments when those individuals that know the least about the marketplace, when to time the market, when I'm able to time the market accurately, and I have an opinion about where I think the market's going to go, if at that very moment it's diametrically opposed to the individuals that are watching someone else's live stream and they have their opinion and they're being, well, they have emojis in their posts, or they're highly charged with emotions. Oh, it's going to go crazy. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. That right there is one of the strongest diametrically opposed sentiment confirmations that I could have in my own analysis. Now, I say that because I do the same thing with other YouTubers that are homesteaders. Okay. And what is that? People that have their own livestock, they have a farm, they teach people how to live basically in a self-sustained manner. And while I don't fully do that type of thing, I've always been fascinated with it. And I do have some self-sustained things at my own home, but like I don't raise livestock. I've contemplated doing chickens for my own fresh eggs, but I haven't done it yet. And I'm not a gardener. So I don't have a green thumb. Am I trying to cultivate, no pun intended, that skill set? I have over the last year or so. I've been looking at some of the property I have and how I might be able to use that. Considered maybe buying some property off of my own home's property and using it just for primarily, producing food. But it's still a work in progress, and I'm not in a rush to do that. But I'm interested in it. So what I say is, those individuals that have a comment section, or if they have live streams, they will have people come in and they will leave comments about what they think also. And I'm listening. Okay. I'm listening to these individuals. And when they start talking about things I said years ago, what does that mean? How we're going to see global unrest. We're going to see wars. We're going to see Russia take on Ukraine. We're going to see China, which is eventually going to cross that line and go into Taiwan. If you haven't really been paying attention, the United States is giving all of the perfect setups for China to do that. And what's going on is we're messing with Greenland. We're messing with South America. We're talking about Canada. We're doing all these things, and we're diluting our focus and our resources in places around the world that will just give the perfect excuse why we couldn't do anything to help you, Taiwan. We couldn't do it. We had too many irons in the fire, and it is what it is. Okay, so I do believe that's going to happen. Admittedly, I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet, but I believe it's going to happen. And we're just going to be, unfortunately, unable and preoccupied with so many things in the States going on and what we're trying to do everywhere else, that we won't do anything to defend Taiwan. And Taiwan will be overtaken much in the same vein that Russia's doing with Ukraine. And honestly, it's all part of this whole theater, this whole thing that's going on. You ever look at the news? I don't watch the news. I kind of look at what's going on around the world, and then I can tell you what the headlines are going to be. And I've been doing it for years. And it's not to say that I'm some kind of Nostradamus or some prophet or anything like that. I'm just aware. I'm paying attention. And a lot of you that are investors or traders or would-be traders and trying to learn how to do this, you might listen to things like this conversation and think, this has nothing to do with anything. This is boring. Like this. But if you don't think about these things, it's going to be these very things that's going to wipe your account out, because you won't know the cause and effect of all of these things converging to create a perfect storm where the markets will just basically just crush you. There'll be moves one directional and it's over. Like your account's gone and it's done. And I believe that when individuals in these homesteaders comments are finally talking about the things I've talked about, then either we're going to see the next level of authoritarianism, or something new is going to start becoming the developing focus to keep people talking and distracted and not diverged, but divided. So there's a few homesteaders I like listening to. I like them as a personality, and a lot of them are self-professing Christians, and I kind of gravitate to those types of people too, even though they don't believe what the Bible teaches. Many of them, it's like the Southern Bible Belt believers. And if you're listening, don't be offended by that. But it just seems like a lot of those folks down there, they think that Charles Nelson Darby invented the rapture, and they don't believe that people should be baptized, and they think that all you got to do is say, "I believe in you, Jesus," and they go to heaven. And none of that's scriptural. Like none of that is. But they're very dogmatic. And I entertain myself by going to war with them in debates in my little substandard little YouTube channel that I talk to people with. I use that channel to talk to people in gun channels, homesteading channels. I never use it really to talk in trading. I just talk as ICT because I like the pop that it brings. But the idea of listening to less informed people that are highly energetic about what their opinions are, and they feel like they're on the high ground. And I like listening to people like that, both in the trading universe and the common laity of the average 9 to 5 type person, which will congregate in these homesteader channels. They're down to earth folks. They're just, plain Jane like anybody else. They put their pants on just like anybody else. They're not trying to be mental giants, but what they believe in wholeheartedly. And they don't bite their tongue when they have an opinion. They say what they want to say and they mean what they say. And that's what I'm looking to tap into. So when I see things like, oh, well, we're probably going to have some problems with the elections. Well, these are all things I said before. I said that these things were going to lead to martial law. And I started seeing it when Obama was in his first term. And then his second term, it started getting heated up. And then he started changing. He started going after the smelters. That he wasn't going after the guns. He was eventually targeting the people that makes the ammunition. So you can have all the guns in the world, but if you don't have ammunition, what good is it? A lot of people don't know how to make their own rounds. They can't recase anything. They just don't know that. They don't have that skill. So that had me alarmed, and I started buying firearms because of that. And that idea of paying attention to that stuff, because I was never really political. I never really cared about. I have never voted because I believe firmly that if it mattered, we wouldn't be allowed to do it. And I know some of you are very staunch critics of that perspective, and you'll probably want to come at me for that. And you're welcome to your opinion, but you're not going to sway me on it. Like, I mean, here's the way I look at it. Okay, of anybody that has the freedom to be able to complain about everything, I do, because I wasn't screwed over by anybody that I voted for, and I didn't get screwed over by the person I didn't vote for. So I'm unbiased. See, I'm not on the team. I'm part of that Hegelian dialect. I don't care because I know they're on both sides. Our last real president was Ronald Reagan. And you can believe what you want to believe. I don't care. But the bottom line is I've never had a desire to go out there and register as a voter and vote, because I've always felt, just like the face of communism himself, they don't care about elections. They just care about who counts the votes. And we're never going to have, ever, it's never going to have a outcome that's organic and not adulterated. It's going to be messed up all the time, because all these oligarchs, all these people out there that are unelected, they are subservient to their masters. And those individuals are Luciferian. They are the ones that run everything. They are the owners of the algo. They're the ones that do all the things that make things go. They're the individuals that tell the people, the World Economic Forum and the NWO, what to promote and push. They're employees of these quote unquote lords. Okay. And that is what makes this whole world go round. So I'm not of the opinion that, we're ever going to be able to vote these types of things, but to lose your mind over it, to go out on the streets, and create a situation where you eventually get harmed or you cause someone else's harm because your energized opinion, that's exactly what they want you to do. That's what they want you to do. When you as a class of society, when they know that you're looking for a hero, they're going to supply that hero for you. That's what Trump was in 2016. That's what I said on my social media accounts then. I said, I'm looking forward to seeing the election because I want to see if Donald Trump can be elected. And because he's nothing like this politician, I want to see if that's being in there. Now, a lot of people were like, there ain't no way he's going to be elected. There's no way he could possibly win. And that made it further likely, in my opinion, that it was going to happen. So much so that I came out and said, he's going to win. Like, he's going to win. I did not vote for him. I have never, my hand to God, I've never voted. My wife has never voted. We've never done these things. And we're not quote unquote Republican. We're not quote unquote Democrat. We're not independent. We have a lot of conservative views. We don't believe in abortion. We believe there's two genders. We believe that a marriage is a man and a woman. We believe that, that institute of marriage is what it is. You can have whatever deviant lifestyle you want to have because it's your right and freedom to do so. But I don't believe it should be forced down people's necks, and it shouldn't be forced on children because it's deviant. It's not normal. And if you have a problem with that, I don't care. Okay. But that's my view. So you might say, well, that you're one of those Republican conservatives, whatever. Well, whatever you want to call me, it doesn't change the fact that this is what I stand on. This is what my family values are. And if you were to ask me what my views were on homosexuality, lesbianism, queer, LGBTQ, I think that they're mentally ill and they need to have help. And that's my view on it. But I don't go to the ballot box and try to shove that perspective on everybody else because I honestly don't believe that that's going to work. It doesn't work. Those individuals that live that lifestyle, you can't really reach them. So I don't go out of my way to argue with them. I don't try to belittle them. But I get a lot of people asking all the time, what's my views on this? What's my views on that? If you know me, I've been very upfront about it. And I've said it here again, where if you like me because I'm a mentor to trading, but now you're offended because you live a queer lifestyle or something like that, and now you want to hate me or want to come in, whatever. That's not going to bother me. And I don't say it to cause that kind of riff, but when I do things like this, when I come out and I respond to someone or I post something that comes out of nowhere, it's because all of a sudden there's this big movement or wave of people coming to me in my comment section, like somewhere somebody's talking about it. And it's gotten to a point where everybody's like, well, this is what he would say, or this is what his views are. And then they argue about it. So they're like, what do you think about this? And I let it brew for a little while until it's so much so when I'm going through the comments of my videos, it's like every other comment, it's around that general theme. So then I'll come out and I'll do a blanket statement, and here's what it is. So my point in saying all this is that you're seeing them getting ultimately what they want. Them is individuals that are running everything, not just in the United States, but in every country. Look what's going on over in the UK. I facetiously made a post, and I said to my UK friends and pupils, tell me what your thoughts are about getting jailed for anything that you might say that would be contradictory to what the thought police over there in the UK would have you live under. Because that's what you're under now. You have the thought police. You don't have freedom of speech. And I already seen the division in the comment section about that, where people will come for, oh, it's not like that because it's this, that, and the other thing. Man, some of you are so gullible. Some of you are so indoctrinated, institutionalized by these individuals that have shaped your mind. And you let your children go to these indoctrination centers that they call schools to get further along the program than you are. That's scary to me. That's frightening, because you don't have independent thought, and you don't have the freedom. You don't have, well, some of you don't have the safety to speak freely anymore. Do I think that people should be able to make threats against other people? Absolutely not. There's no reason to do those types of things. But I believe that we should have the right to be highly criticized, both giving and taking, but not have physical harm or threats like that brought to us. And our leadership shouldn't have those things either. We can look, like, for instance, like a Chuck Schumer. Okay, every Democrat. I mean, I can't find one redeeming individual in the Democratic Party now at all. Now, I'm 54 in August this year, and I can tell you, I was raised with an uncle who literally had a lot of inspiration in what I do as a man, what I do as, as a finance thinking individual. He's the first person to talk to me when I was in my early teens about becoming a trader. He's always been a Democrat until Trump. But I'll be honest with you, Trump's never changed teams. He's always been a Democrat. He just said he was Republican. And the things that he came out and did in 2016, his term then, was just basically getting in the position as a breaker. That's what he was. He was a breaker. He broke the status quo of what people thought about politics. He was using his influence as someone in the reality TV type thing. And his name was obviously, synonymous with money, regardless of what people think, oh, he put this company into bankruptcy and he did that. Folks, listen, when companies no longer are profitable, you allow them to go into bankruptcy. It doesn't mean that you went bankrupt, but that's the level of lunacy and financial illiteracy that most people in the United States illustrate by having that same mindset. The guy's worth billions of dollars, okay, but yet they think he's broke. He's part of this whole thing. He's part of it. That's what I wanted to see in 2016. I wanted to see how he conducted himself, what decisions he made, and how his interactions with the public and the average person would culminate into results that either improve the overall efficiency as our country, because our country's it's a business, regardless of how you want to look at it. It is a business, and someone that understands business, they're going to be more equipped to be able to do that. And when they do that and they run our country like a business, it's efficiently ran, the markets will run efficiently, because it creates commerce, it creates business, it creates trade, it comes with revenue and income. And everybody can find opportunity very, very easy. Now, contrast that, his first term, even though lunacy was all over the place, okay, riots were all part of that first term. And then when the Biden regime came in, because they stole the election, and I dare any of you to say it didn't happen because they literally are finding proof of it every single day now. The point is this: where were the riots? None. None. So we're back into, here's Trump. Everybody's expecting 2016 Trump again, expecting the market to be crazy good again. What do we have? More lunacy, more nutsos, more division, more fighting in the streets, more we got to get out there and do something. You're not going to do anything but get yourself in trouble. That's what you're going to do. That's what you're going to do. Okay? The markets are no better with him being in office now. In fact, it's come to a screeching halt. Look at the dollar. Look at the indices. They're in this big block range. They're just grinding people down, grinding accounts, grinding people's patience. They know that your hopes and dreams were on him being in there, elect again, and then okay, we're going to have our well-oiled engine, come to life again, and everything's going to be easy. It's going to be salad days again, and they're strangling everything. And the only thing that's moving is the metals. They're the only thing that's moving right now. Very, very fluid, one-sided, one-directional, and it's several things going on there. Number one, it's a precursor to another world war. It's a precursor to a banking crisis. It's a precursor to the common folk being fearful. When we as traders, we care about the ebb and flow of the marketplace. We have a finger on the pulse every single day, whether you're a day trader or not. If you're in the market and you have any skin in the race, you are trying to always get a fixation of what is the market doing today? What is it likely to do tomorrow? Where is it heading in general? Is it good? Is it bad? Are we in inflationary, deflationary? What are we looking at? Because we have a vested interest in the outcome. But because we're Main Street mentality, Front Street, the average person that doesn't have a 401k, they don't invest in stocks. They don't trade futures. They certainly don't have any cryptocurrency. When I'm watching these homesteaders channels and I watch these people come forward and they have these asinine, ass backwards opinions about what they think their markets are going to do. Like they were all saying that silver and gold were topped out. And that's when I came out and said, they're getting ready to really go up. And it's going to go up a lot. Because they think tops form when they go to high prices. But they don't understand the dynamic behind what's making gold and silver go up. There's a huge underlying engine underneath these markets that are going to propel them higher. Gold, when the BRICS nations said that they were going to have a gold-backed currency and all these nations started signing on to it, that is a formidable challenge for the dollar. And I've said this before. I said it when I was in my mentorship. I said, it's kind of easy, really, to topple the dollar. And it's to do what Putin and China's president have been working on. If you get a large body of countries to say, you know what, we don't like the U.S. when they, come after us because we don't want to do what they want us to do. All of a sudden, we have to have a regime change in our own country. What would happen? Okay, what would happen if all of the BRICS nations came together and said, you know what, we don't like Donald Trump and we want to go into the United States and do a regime change? How would you feel about that? Because that's exactly what we do as a country. We go around like we're the police of everybody. And that's one of the things that I have felt uncomfortable about since George Bush Jr. That whole shift in September 11th, 2001, That's when the whole change in narrative started on that day. Now, one can argue and say, well, there was things before that when JFK got knocked off and when this and that and other thing. Yeah, but it really became obvious in September 11th when those things that we watched take place. If you were alive then, you know exactly where you were that day. You knew it. Something was wrong. Something really, really bad was going on. And I wanted my entire family immediately home. I knew in the pit of my stomach that things were definitely wrong. I watched that second plane hit the building live. I came home and saw the first plane hit it. And I was saying to myself, well, it must have been one of those small planes. Somebody just unfortunately had an accident and maybe had a medical emergency in flight and it hit the building. But then when I watched that second plane hit it, that was weird. That was like what am I looking at? Because at first I thought it was a kind of like a commercial for a movie. And then when I turned the volume up, because I just dropped Cody off at school, and I was sitting with a guy named George Lutz, who I was teaching how to trade. And the market didn't open up. And I remember telling him, because we were talking through internet relay chat at the time, I told him, I said, listen, obviously I don't know what to tell you today, but I have things I have to take care of. Like I have to get my family safe, and that's where my mind's at right now. I'm stuck in a trade in SPOOs. The market's not opening, and I got things to do. I can't talk to you. And that's when my anxiety really ramped up. And I was a victim to the news. I was a victim to all that stuff. And they would have every day this terror threat assessment, code red, code orange, code yellow, and every other day they would say, oh, the threat level's raised up. And they were basically selling pharmaceuticals. You can go back and look at the pharmaceutical industry and see the sales of all of these anxiety medications, depression medications. All of them go straight up parabolic from September 11th, 2001. So what they were doing was they were cultivating this perfect test tube environment where individuals were placed under great deals of stress. So not only were we going over there and stealing oil, we're over there doing all those things, but we're also victimizing our own citizens through abuse, mental abuse, in the hopes that they will go to the very drugs that they're going to profit off of too, big pharma. So how's that any different with the COVID stuff? They made billions of dollars on something they just came up with like that. We need a cure for this. Okay, bam, bam, here we go. We got it right now. Not only one, but we have several companies that came out with a cure like that. But yet none of them have a cancer cure. And there's so many things you can look at and say, you know what, let me take a step back. Okay. And let me just look at the facts about what these things suggest. Who makes the money? Where's the money coming from? What's the dynamic between that? Somebody has to pay. Well, what's the surest way to make somebody pay? You're going to die unless you pay. You're going to die unless you allow us to take some of your freedoms and liberties away. And now when you get on an airplane, you got to get molested. When's the last time we had a hijacked plane? But yet when you go there, you, your wife, your husband, your children, all getting felt up by strangers. For what? You already walk you through a metal detector. Why are they feeling you all up? It's control. It's to take away your sense of identity and I am sovereign. I'm my own person. There's boundaries. You don't touch them. You don't go past this threshold. And they're conditioning people. They've been conditioning people for years to take less and less of a role of an opposition against some of the things and most of the things you're seeing today. And they do it gradually. That's what they've been doing for such a long time. Take things slowly. That way, you don't resist it that way. Because if they would have come out and said, here's what's going to happen, we're going to put you in a very low population. Most of you aren't going to survive anymore. And you're going to be subservient. And you can't make money. You can't own property. And you will do whatever we say. And if you don't like it, we'll just euthanize you. Who's going to sign on board with that idea? Nobody. But go back through history and see how everything is marching to that tune. And when they tell you who they are and what they want to do, you should believe them. When they tell you you're not going to own private property and you're not going to have vehicles and you're all going to be inside of a smart city, that sounds like the Fifth Element. Everybody's in their little cubicles, their little hamster boxes, and you don't own it. You rent it. And if you want to travel, everybody does mass transit, and everything's going to be within a 15-minute distance. And if you don't follow the rules, you get punished. You're going to have a social credit score, all these things, universal basic income. They've destroyed the whole idea of college. I'm convinced that when I was going through it, that was the last years where it was really meaningful. Because now what comes out of colleges is a mess. You're in debt up to your eyeballs and you don't have any real job skill. And now they're coming out and telling you what they're really aiming to do, where AI is going to do 90% of the things that people think that their career is going to allow them to do. I saw a comment, unless someone's going to college for medicine, they're stupid. Well, I'm not sure where you're getting your information from, but they're literally trying to push the idea that AI is going to be the best physician. So when you go in and a clerk takes your symptoms, AI is going to say, well, here's the treatment procedure. This is the medication that you need to take. This is the dosage. So they don't have to pay these high salaries to physicians anymore. AI is going to do it. And they trained you to accept that type of thing by having this online medical website. That's the worst thing they ever did. That was the worst thing they ever did. Because now, if you weren't a hypochondriac, you are now. I'm having this weird sensation in my left arm. Because the last time I heard someone talk about sensations in the left arm, it's heart attack or stroke. Let me go in here and see what this website says. Well, if you're having tingling in your left arm, dizziness, feeling nauseous, pressure in your solar plexus and chest, you should probably seek medical attention because you're probably having a heart attack or early stages of it. How about you probably have tennis elbow and you're stressing, so you're keeping yourself tense, and lactic acid's building up in your muscles, and you've scared yourself by hyperventilation. You blew off your CO2, and now you're feeling the effects of adrenaline, but not doing anything because you're scared. And now cortisol is racing through your bloodstream, destroying your blood vessels. That body symptom is going to have all those same things. Do you still feel that once you calm yourself down, slow your breathing 10 minutes later? If you do, then you should go to a medical physician. But if it goes away 99.9% of the time, that's anxiety. I went through all of those things. And for the people that are sitting there shaking their head saying, this guy's going on about nothing, that's because you are a pothead. You don't have any real responsibilities. You don't have any dependents. You probably live in your mother's basement still. You haven't finished school, and you think you know everything, but you know nothing. So you haven't really been tested in the world. So you don't have any stresses in the world. But when people have real responsibilities and they put ridiculous levels of Olympic feats of success goals over top of themselves, because they look at people on the internet and they think, I can't live up to that unless I do this, 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 and this. You just fell victim to it. Social media has not been introduced to help us live together well. It's been created to cause division, unhealthy competition. It's literally to keep up with the Joneses. That's the expression in the United States. If you're outside the States, you probably won't get that expression. But for everyone in the United States, we all understand what that means. When you're looking at your neighbor, you're looking at the person down the street or the people in the world that are doing very well, like celebrities and athletes. How are they buying cars and homes, and how are they dressing? Most of the things that they do is contractual. Like when they go to these award ceremonies, you think they paid for that dress or that suit they're wearing? No, they are paid to do that. They're walking billboards, but you're a sucker. You look at this and say, wow, I want to go out there and buy myself a Rolex watch. And let me tell you something, Rolex is trash. Okay. It's trash. They're overpriced garbage. You want a real watch? Patek Philippe. That's a watch. And that's still it's too much money. Okay. But that's a real watch. But you all look at these things and you think, I'm not successful unless I'm stupid enough to spend that kind of money on things like that. The cars that you see them in commercials, they don't own those vehicles. They don't do those things. Most of the time, they have a grocery getter car. Why? Because their financial advisors are telling them, park your money in interest-bearing accounts, fixed income, real estate, and don't waste your money on stupid things. That's the reality. That people with real money and are trying to continuously make good money and not waste money, this is what they do. Now, I'm not saying that people that don't have a business that use that measure because it works, it sells. And I believe that I would be even greater in terms of, a larger person in trading in terms of an influencer, guru, furu, whatever you want to call me. If I would have showed everything that I can afford, I would have been much more well known. But I never wanted to do that. Even at the height, I don't do those things because it communicates the wrong message. I don't want you focusing on those things because those things, which I was doing the same thing when I was younger, I was interested in all that stuff. I chased all that. I was keeping up with the Joneses. If someone bought this car, that car, they want to live in this type of neighborhood, this house, I was telling them, I'm going to do even better than that. I'm going to do this better. I'm going to have a car that's faster than that. I'm going to buy more cars than you. I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. I'm going to buy the most expensive shoes, the most expensive watches, and real estate where the common folk would be happy to live in just any old house. If they said they liked that person's celebrity house, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to buy something bigger and better than that. That's a trap. That's the problem. And when you look at where we are as a society, not just in the United States, but globally, we're past that threshold of money, wealth, and status. Now we're at the point where we're fighting each other, and our day begins with who can we war against with next and new today? How can we conquer more for our team? And where do they go? Right on social media. They recruit. They want to get people thinking like them. And then come out in the streets. That's stupidity. You're literally giving them what they want. Not the nincompoops that are out there in the streets being stupid and causing a ruckus. The people that pay them. You think all those people up there in Minnesota are up there because they love their position on everything? No. They're financed to do that. And they're being paid a lot of money by billionaires because they want that destabilization. They want that because it's going to cause, in their mind, the dollar to tank. And that collapse on the dollar, they'll profit from. They're doing all these things because it's financially motivated and it's control oriented. They want more power. These people are already rich. but they want complete and utter control of everything. They want a smaller population, so that way they don't have to worry about elections anymore. Easiest thing to do, cause enough trouble and suspend elections. They have a reality star over there in Ukraine doing that right now. It's been like that for a while. He's an illegitimate president. Just a couple years ago, he's prancing around with pleather pants on and high heel shoes as a goofball. And now he's supposed to be taken serious as the Ukrainian president. Like, we're in clown world, folks. Clown world. And Putin literally came out and said something, or I'm not sure if he said it, but it was a post I saw, this morning. He said the Western world, their problem isn't what they think it is. It's the fact that the people that are in power are drunk on power, and they want just that. And that's where the real problems are. And he nailed it on the head perfectly. That's the truth. That's the truth. And I don't see a way out of it for the United States. I don't. I don't see what we have is broken. It's broken. I have no faith in the elections. I have no faith in not one senator on either side of the aisle. Not one of them. All of them are tainted. All of them. All of them are. They're all on the take. They're all profiting from it, because if they didn't have something to gain from it, they wouldn't have supported a lot of things they've done, or they wouldn't sit back quietly and just not participate. They're just going along with it. And that, to me, is very problematic. And we are slowly being funneled into the same types of things that you're seeing in the UK. You can't speak your mind. Let me tell you something. Nobody should have the right, I don't care what country you came from, just because you have it hard there doesn't give you the right to come here on a free ride, paid to be put up in homes that you don't have to pay rent for. You don't have to pay for your own groceries. You don't have to pay for your cell phone. You don't have to pay for your own health care. And then you have the luxuries of bilking the taxpayer with fraudulent companies, milking them, which is my tax dollars and your tax dollars in the United States. And then when they get caught, they get tossed right back out on the street by an activist judge. You don't see there's something wrong there? Everybody's on the take, and they know that people are going to talk about it. I'm talking about it, but I'm not going to go out in the street and be stupid. I'm not going to invite you to go out there and go in the streets and do something stupid either. I'm telling you, don't do those things. Observe what they're doing, understand what they're doing and the motivation behind it. It's because they want destabilization. They want the perfect excuse to come in as the rescuing hero, because eventually it's going to get so bad that you're all going to be begging for them to bring down the hammer and institute martial law. And they're going to be glad to do it. They're going to be like, well, you know what? We're going to give you what you asked for. We are going to protect you. But it's them creating the situation. They're standing there with a gas can full of gas and a lighter. They just started the fire. And behind them is the bucket of water. That's the solution. They already had the solution in mind. But they're creating the problem to bring the solution they already have in mind, which is their outcome, and it favors them, which is more control, less freedoms and liberties for us. We have no First Amendment rights. Eventually, it's going to be no Second Amendment rights. And when we start seeing that, the people that are going to be quiet and say nothing and just leave me alone, I'm going to live my life and be peaceful, those individuals are not going to feel that way anymore. And then we might have a 1776, mind shift. And then it becomes very dangerous. But here's the thoughts that I want you to have. There's no way of voting that out. How are you going to vote it? What are you seeing? Honestly, I'm going to be blunt. I know some of you are just diehard Trumpers, and the guy could literally do anything he wants, and you're just going to love him for it. Okay, because you're a team player. You bought the franchise. Okay, You're just like the Ravens here. I don't watch football. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. Now, that's not entirely true. I watched a couple college games and I felt more involved in watching the college players' games than the NFL. I think the NFL is like the WWE. It's scripted. There's so much money behind it. And if you had to have that many referee, I was going to call them umpires. That tells you I don't know anything about football. But if you have to have that many referees, that means you have a lot of influence on the outcome of the game. So if we have corruption like in sports, well, that same thing would happen in elections because there's much more money in the outcome of elections. Lobbyists, people coming in and having greater influence on the outcome than we do with our vote. I'm not convinced that there's a solution to that because what do we have to choose from? Think about it. We got a president right now that is literally saying he's going to take Greenland, which is a NATO country, and it's already a partner in the past with us. We had 17 military bases on this country, and they were glad to let us do it. And if we needed to put more of them in one area, I'm certain they'd be like, okay, no problem. It's done. It's handled. So why is it that we have to take them over? We got to take their country from them. I don't feel comfortable with that. I think that's a problem. We're not entitled to that. Like, why is it that the United States does this to countries that really can't fight back? Sure, we went down to Venezuela, we removed the guy. But what are they going to do in response? Why don't we go over there? We had all these problems with Putin. We had all these problems with Xi Jinping. Okay. We have all these problems with Rocket Man. What's his name? His name escapes me. North Korea guy. I can't, Kim Jong-un, or I think it's what his name is, something like that. You know, why didn't we go over there and stir up the nest over there? Because Big Brother China will get involved. So I think we are like a paper tiger. We only do the things that we're going to do to countries that we know they can do nothing back. Okay. And you might be a veteran. You know, you might be someone that's served in the country, something I have not done. And I will be the first one to shake your hand and say, I thank you for the opportunity to be in a country that you risked your life for. And I came from a family that had every branch of government. And my grandfather, when I was younger, I was going to be a Navy man. And he told me straight up, he saw it during his lifetime. He told me, Michael, don't do it. The country's not the same country I went to war for. Don't do it. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what he meant by that. But he was like my dad. So if he was going to tell me that, I believed him on face value. I gave him the authority in my life as a father figure. And when he told me these things, I said, well, he wouldn't tell me anything that wasn't for my best interest in mind. And he didn't go into detail, but he was in World War II. He was out there on a battleship. He watched the kamikazes literally coming down. He could see their faces screaming before they hit the deck and blew up. He saw that. And he saw his friends scared to death. And he thought he was going to die many times. And here's that man, big, burly man, that everybody in the neighborhood knew about. If he was in the bar and you got somebody new in town, they would come in there and want to stir up some trouble and run their mouth. He'd stand up and tell them, shut your mouth or I'm going to put your ass on the floor. And if they didn't know who he was, they stood up and then they got knocked down. They knew not to mess with Floyd. Don't do it. So here's that same man telling me as a young, impressionable, early teenager about ready to graduate from high school when I'm like, Pop, I'm gonna join the Navy. Because I wanted that attaboy, I'm proud of you type thing. I wanted him to tell me I'm proud of you. And I thought this was the surest way of doing it because he's a Navy man, very proud Navy man. And to hear him talk about his other, fellow Navy people that that brotherhood that isn't just limited to the Navy. My dad was a Marine. I had an uncle that was in the Army. To see them, how they look at other individuals in their branch, and they have respect. I mean, there's a lot of bull crap that goes on there. They josh the Marines all the time. The Marines josh everybody else. But honestly, anybody that serves, they have respect for anybody else in another branch of government. And to me, that's a brotherhood. Unless you're part of it, you just don't understand it. But I seen it in the way my family conducted themselves. And when my grandfather said, "Don't join the Navy, don't join any branch of military. The country's not the same." I just took it at face value. And then later on in life, he was gone. But when September 11th happened, I started seeing things. I started paying attention to, what are we doing? What are we doing as a country? And there are problems that I don't think are easily fixed. I don't have the solution. I don't think anybody else has that solution either. I think we've crossed that line that you can't come back from, and it's just going to get perpetually worse as it goes along. And I know that probably doesn't sound good, because usually you like to hear me talk and get you all fired up. You're going to be able to conquer the world in trading, blah blah blah. Maybe you won't. Let's just say that you don't. If all of your hopes are placed on you making money, lots of it in trading, that's a little bit myopic in my opinion, because there's other things in this world besides money. There's a lot of things that people are just not aware of that brings much more happiness that you think money will give you, and it doesn't. I'm a rich man, and I can tell you, money doesn't make me happy. If I wanted to be happier, I could sell mentorships. I could over leverage accounts. I could be going there and bilking all these funded account companies under aliases. Okay, I could be doing all that stuff, having lots of fun doing that, but that doesn't make me happy. Living content, knowing that I don't have to do anything. Like, I don't have to do anything. Most of you have no idea what that feels like. It's very liberating. Hang on one second. I got to disturb my little girl here. She's snoring like a lumberjack here. Hey, little girl. I can't edit your snoring out. I'm live here. All the YouTubers are going to be upset because that's in there in the background. So I think that, let me make sure I'm getting close to the microphone here. I think that, we're in for a real ride here. And to hear things like Trump saying, maybe I'll do another third term. And you think he's joking around. And initially, I thought he was joking around too, like he's trolling. But then when he starts talking about things like, we don't need Congress anymore. Since when? Since when we don't need that? That's the way things are done. I don't like the people on both sides of the aisle. I don't. But our way of government and the three branches of our government are the way things are. And just like I don't think activist judges should be allowed to remain seated, they should be impeached, they should be removed, they should be held accountable. If someone's grossly guilty of something that's criminal, if they let that person out and they go and do something equal or worse, they should be held accountable for that. Not just the person that did the crime, but I think they should be held accountable for that. The idea of placing all of these opposition judges, that was started during Obama's tenure as the president, the illegitimate president, the Kenyan, because that's what he was. That's what he is. The guy that's married to Michael, my Michelle. Yeah, how about that? He put all that stuff out there, and you've seen how effective it was in causing the excuse why certain things couldn't get done that everybody was hopeful for in Trump's first term. And then when the beast that was and was not and shall be, I mean Trump, by the way, when this person was elected in 2016, he failed to get there in the office again in 2020. But then he made his way back in there. So now everybody was expecting what? The same thing, just a sequel, but more of it. What do you have? Where's all the no more wars? I don't see that. I hear about new wars happening all the time. We're literally going in there in other people's countries and taking over their country. When is it legal for a president to go into another country and say, okay, I'm going to take your oil and it's going to be better for your people that I'm taking your oil and I'm taking the money and I'm putting it in an account, offshore account, in my name only, and I'm going to oversee what we're going to do with the money. Does that sound kosher to you? Like, I'm going to be honest with you, that's kind of weird. Like, it feels like I woke up in another dimension where there's no sense at all. Like, we're in Looneyville here. In no timeline ever has that ever been something that would be viewed as, oh yeah, that's only up and up and legal. It doesn't make any sense to me. And people are just walking around that are supporting Trump. They just think it's okay. And I think they have been beaten into submission to whatever that man says is the truth. Whatever that man wants to do, it's okay and justified. And any president, male or female, regardless of the background, whatever side of the aisle they're on, they have to be reined in. They have to have some capacity of control over top of them. They just can't do whatever they want to do. That's lawlessness. That's lawlessness. And if the person that's in charge is conducting themselves in a lawless manner, what message is being conveyed to the citizens of the country? The law doesn't apply to them. So if it doesn't apply to the highest person in our country in terms of commander in chief, if they're not subject to the law, then what are the people, the citizenry, going to think about themselves? That they are not underneath the law either. And then you get what is going on in the streets now. Lawlessness. And now they created this whole business of here's the ice baby coming out there. And they're going to stop all these Somalians coming into the country. Are people being arrested? No doubt people are getting arrested. I'm not convinced that that's what they're there for. I'm convinced that they want to create the problems that you're seeing now. Because it's wintertime, folks. The crowds aren't that big right now because it's cold. It takes a lot of money to pay for those people to be there. But when the weather breaks in the springtime, going in the summer, it's game on. All the nutsos are going to come out. All the hardliners are going to come out. All the anti-Trumpers, all the Trump supporters, everybody's going to come out there. And then things are going to exchange from both sides. And it's going to be allowed to happen for a little bit of time. And then when all that stuff kicks off and the average person realizes how unsafe it is to go out in public anymore, just to go to the grocery store, you run the risk of getting yanked out and pulled out of your car and jumped because they think you are a ICE supporter or a Trump supporter or you're an anti-Trump supporter, like whatever team that you think you're on. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, what you believe. If you stand in front of my car and you think that you're going to do anything with anybody in my family in that car, you think that you're going to do that, you are a speed bump to me. I want to see how fast I can go over top of you. I'm not worrying about the outcome. I'm going to run you over because I feel like you're endangering my life. You're endangering my family's life. And I don't care what anybody else says about that. When people do that, you're acting like a barricade. That's threatening. And I feel like I can handle myself. Certainly I could handle myself when I was a younger man. Even then in my prime, I would still do the same thing. Because if you're outnumbered, it doesn't matter what you think you can do, how you can throw your hands, or how many brass friends you have on your hip. You can't take care of all of them if they're trying to yank you out of the car. I was a younger man, and when Rodney King got beat up and abused by the police back then, and they were doing the trials and whatnot, I was downtown in Baltimore City. And I got to tell you, I was the only white guy in the area, and I had bags of money coming out of vending machines in my hands inside of a milk crate. I just serviced the machines I was in. And I literally was scared to death of what was going to happen. I tried my best to get through that part of town as fast as I could. And it wasn't very long where things were on fire. They were smashing things up. People were getting yanked out of their cars, stomped on. Man, I was going up northbound on 83. I was so thankful just to be out of there and heading back to Owings Mills, Maryland to drop my truck off, let my boss at the time take the money and cash it out. And then I wanted to go home because I was thinking to myself, it's going to get wild. It was wild everywhere. People were fed up. They were just, they're getting to the point where they're going to pop off. So one man got stomped on, and a lot of the country states had civil unrest because of that. Maxine Waters literally was jumping up and down cheerleading when a trucker got yanked out of his truck and smashed in the head with a brick. The same woman that said, get in their faces, don't let them feel safe in the public. That's what we have as leadership. That's what we have. So we're being led by leadership that are corrupt, because she hasn't changed. She's no better than she was when she was a teenager. She's just richer for it. She does the bidding of her overlords. And I'm convinced that both sides of the aisle does the same thing. How else do these same people always get elected? Like, there's nothing to choose from. Where's the fresh blood that's going to come into the country and be good leadership? Because that's what's needed. All these old people that have been sitting around on the tit of lobbyist money, where they get they cause the outcome of these elections. They get what they want. You don't get what you need. You don't get it easier. You don't have low interest rate lending that's within reason. An economy that has a very healthy job market where people are coming in, and it's not just one or two segments of the marketplace, where everybody has a livable wage because we're not getting screwed. Think about it. Not one of these people ever can do anything to make things better, but they keep getting richer, and you keep losing liberties, freedoms, and the noose around your neck is getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And the only thing that changes is the animosity you have for your neighbor, because you think it's their fault that they voted these people in, and they're not voting them in. These people are getting in because they're rigging the elections, but they're telling you it's those people that voted for them. So what is it going to do? It's going to cause you to hate that person with the blue hair, the nose rings, the people that have the T-shirts that have "Make America Great" and hats. It's this team mentality. And they take football mentality. They want to take the Pittsburgh Steelers. I got to make sure I got to check myself. Is it Pittsburgh Steelers? Pennsylvania Steelers or Pittsburgh Steelers? One of the two. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. And the Baltimore Ravens, they're rivals. Okay. I've watched these guys have fist fights over games. Like they're sleeping with these players and their boyfriend and girlfriend with them. Like you can't do that to my man. Like, these are grown ass men, and they're literally going to war, throwing hands, sometimes pulling out weapons because of a game with an inflated pigskin, and they're running around with tights on, football helmets, and stuff that just doesn't have an outcome that means anything to me. They take that mindset and they place it into politics. And they make it a war of identity. You either identify with my side or you're the opposition. And that's not what our founding fathers had in mind. And I'm convinced that, we're living in a time where you can clearly see that they're not following the Constitution anymore. And it's been slowly being unveiled, if you will, that it's no longer the law of the land. So what is? Executive orders? Because that's not law. And when you have somebody that's supposed to be the commander in chief coming out there saying, we don't need Congress anymore. We can buy your country or we're going to take it. You have a choice. That's a mafia shakedown. That's what that is. And that doesn't sit right with me, man. And I'm being honest with you because I know some of you think, well, it doesn't matter because you don't vote. Or we don't like you because we don't like you. Okay? I get it. All of you have an opinion, and your opinions are valid because that's what you believe. And that's what makes our country great, because we can share our opinions even if they're differing. But it doesn't change the fact that you're entitled to it. I'm entitled to mine. Yours are entitled to be yours. And it doesn't matter. I don't need you to subscribe to the way I see things. I'm certainly not going to subscribe to what I see majority of people do. I'm a contrarian at heart. I want to know what everybody else is doing because I'm the first one in line going the other direction. That's what I'm looking to do all the time. I'm not in the business of going out there and risking my life, my well-being, my net worth, my family, my properties. No, I'm not worried about anything that all these people in other countries coming over here and they do things like that. Listen, I can't stop that. But I have an opinion about why is our country, first of all, allowing it to get to that point. Like, what was Tim Walz and his government in Minnesota doing the whole time he's been in office? Like, you don't know this is going on? And I'm convinced that it's happening in other Democratic states too. Maybe even in all the states. Maybe Republicans are on the take too. Maybe we'll find out later on they're on the same thing. Or maybe they're doing something equally corrupt, but just not doing it through that medium of home health care fraud. Maybe they're doing something else. But we'll never pay this debt back. It's never going to get paid off. It's never going to get paid off. So when a country's on its last leg, what do they always do? They rob the treasury. They take all the money. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing them go for the jugular and just take everything they can before it dies. And they don't care that it's visible now. They don't care because it's so far gone that you're not going to change it by voting. There's nobody in either side of the aisle that's going to stand up and do the right thing. And even if there was someone that came in, there's too many of them in positions that are going to oppose them. And that's alarming. And that's the reason why I don't vote. That's the reason why I don't worry about these types of things. I live in my own lane. Sure, I have an opinion. Sure, I'm probably going to make a lot of you angry or disenfranchise you as students because I said what I say here today. If you allow my opinion, my personal opinion, that has no bearing on me as an educator in trading, to sway your continued interest in what it is I teach, you're a casualty to the very thing I'm talking about. You became emotionally sensitive on matters that have nothing to do with you learning from me about the market. And I don't really need you to learn from me. I mean, I'm reminding you that you are in a position of choice. You have a real choice here. But when you go to the ballot box, you don't have a choice. You have the illusion of choice. You think that you have the choice of voting for one person over any other based on your opinion about how they promise to lead. You don't have a say-so. Just because you mark down on the computer screen, that easily gets changed after you do it if it doesn't fit what they want. Because, like the communists say, we don't care about elections. They just care about who counts the votes. And it's been like that for decades. Just nobody cared enough to look into it. They don't care because we got wrapped up right away with Operation Desert Storm. And what did me and the rest of my friends think? We're going to be drafted because some evil Middle Eastern guys came over here and they did some things and we got to do something back to them. Otherwise, we're in trouble. We're going to get killed by these people. And they created this boogeyman scenario. There's always a boogeyman. That's what they've shown consistently. They have to have a boogeyman. And COVID was a new variant boogeyman. You couldn't see him. You couldn't smell him. Well, I guess you could smell him. I had a weird, like a metallic taste and smell for a couple months. But other than that, you didn't know it was there. And apparently, it had an effective range that as long as you were sitting down in the restaurant, it wouldn't get you. But if you stood up without a mask, you're at risk. It was ridiculous, but it was an IQ test. How many stupid people are going to believe that dumb stuff? And people are still driving around in their cars by themselves with windows rolled up, wearing masks. And it's coming out that the shot they gave everyone has caused more harm than help. And they literally came out and said it was not ever going to prevent the infection. That's from their mouth. Where was that before you injected everybody and told them you can't go to work, you can't work here, you can't see your family members, you can't have a wedding, you can't have a funeral? Have you forgot about all that stuff, folks? Because that's what they did to everyone. That's what they did to everyone. My wife couldn't visit her dying aunt, and she died alone in a hospital because of that bullshit. They have yet to have a funeral for her, and you should see the scars that's left from that. Like it's disgusting. It's disgusting. When they said the hospitals were overrun, people couldn't get into the hospital anymore. You're running the risk of not being able to be treated. There's no beds available in the hospitals right now. Do you know what I did? I literally got in my car and drove around to every hospital in the area in a 50-mile radius everywhere. And I noticed that all the parking lots were empty. The lobbies were completely empty. I'd walk in looking around like I was looking for a family member, and I'd walk right back out. Nobody was there. Nobody was there. But you know what I saw on social media? Dancing nurses and doctors. They had all the time in the world to make all these dancing videos. The message was supposedly supporting them because they're working hard for you. They're keeping you alive. They're the front line. Up here where I live at, there was a sign in front of the one hospital that said, supporting our frontline nurses and doctors. And when I first saw the sign, I'm like to myself, yeah, wow, that's bravery. Like they're right there in the face of it all. And then they said, Operation Warp Speed. We got to get this into everybody right now. We just discovered the cure for it. Just happened. We haven't had an opportunity to do any testing, but we're going to give immunity to the companies that produced it. Right away, that's a problem. That's a problem right there. Just like there's immunity for people in the streets right now, one side of them. That's a problem. If one side is given a blank check to do whatever they want to do, and they're led by somebody that does things that are outside the scope of the law, that's a problem. That's a problem. Does that mean go on the streets and act foolish? No. Does that mean uprise and start being nuts? No. It means take notice. Be aware of this, because we are on a trajectory that is unsustainable. Something enormous is on the horizon. Huge, huge problem coming. And they're setting all these little fires right now. Okay. All these little fires are slowly burning. And eventually they're all going to be so big that we will not be able to handle it all at one time. And if you have not made your house ready, that means do what you can. Whatever you can afford, whatever you can do to get the things that you need every day, as much as you can, you should do that. And here's the part where I talk a little bit like a Christian, but I promise it won't last long. It's a couple minutes, and then we'll go back to jawboning about whatever else I'm going to talk about. On the comment section of the Berean Study YouTube channel I've started and hosted. And by the way, thank you so very much for the nice supportive comments. I'm thankful for the discourse that we've had between the people that listen to the videos and whatnot. I'm having a great time sharing all that stuff. I do have one I've been working on, but I'm trying very hard not to make it dull, because I know if you're brand new, it could be very dry information. So I'm trying to find a way where I can teach it in a way where it's engaging, so that way when I get to the punchline of what it's dealing with and what it's talking about, it'll be like, wow, yeah, that is amazing. But the comments are coming to me like this. They'll leave a comment on the channel, but then other people that I guess are a little embarrassed or whatnot, or they don't want to be disrespectful or viewed as being disrespectful. And I have a lot of respect for that. They'll ask me an email. They'll say, please read this email. It's important. It's urgent, urgent, urgent. So of course, naturally my eyes going to jump to that and say, okay, what's this all about? And please don't abuse that, because I'll block you and I'll never read your email if it has something to do with nothing. But usually it's along lines like that. And they'll say, when you say get your house in order and you say prepare and you stock your house up with food and all that stuff, doesn't that kind of like contradict your view of the rapture, or the end times and Jesus is going to come back and take his church home? No, it's not a contradictory view. It doesn't have any opposition to that, because that event, no man knows the day or hour. I don't know how much of the world going upside down we endure of that and still not be the tribulation. Like that, like we don't know that. I don't know that. So this is how way I live my life. I prepare my homes to have everything that I would need if I was wherever I was at. They have vehicles there. I have resources there. I have cash. I have non-perishable food. I have weapons. I have medicines. I have clothing. And I have lots of extra things in case someone from my family or friends need to bed down with me. So that way, it's not just me that I'm taking care of, but I have enough to take care of friends and family. So I'm trying to be a good steward with what the Lord has given me. And because I don't know the day or the hour, I'm not living in fear. What I'm doing is I'm preparing, so that way, number one, I'm making the cost of things way cheaper, because I bought things in bulk in advance. And when I do buy, I buy in bulk all the time. So I'm not going out there and paying premium prices on individual things. I buy things I eat. I buy things that my family eat. I don't buy junk food. I don't buy chips and ice and candy bars and things like that. I do get simple sweets because I have young family members, like nieces and nephews. If they end up in my home, a kid that's bored or cranky or whatever, give them one little piece of candy, it changes the whole demeanor. So I have things like that. But I don't think that having your house prepared is limited to just what you can have in there in terms of food, water, medicine, and resources. But it's also get your house ready with the Lord. That way you don't live in fear. I don't live in fear. I'm not worried about the things that's going on around the world and think, oh my goodness, when I was 20 years old or so, yeah, that's how it was. I was fearful all the time. I was a weak man then, very, very weak. I was very, very much influenced by what the television was telling me through news. And I could have anxiety attacks all the time just by the opening headline. So one of the best things I ever did was stop watching television. Now, I have 9 televisions in my home. That's not counting the screens that's in my office for trading, just 9 televisions. Okay. And the only thing they ever play, if they play anything, is old TV shows where it was before all the woke bullshit. It was back when movies were good and actors were good, actresses were good. The plots were original. They were not sequels all the time or remakes of stuff that's already been done dozens and dozens of times. Or it's just documentaries. I like documentaries. So I'll watch things like that. But I'm not literally watching screens much at all anymore. But I have them in my home. But when I stopped watching television, the byproduct of that was I stopped watching the news. And I noticed that my anxiety levels went way, way, way down because I wasn't worrying about things I had no control over. So what do you have control over? You have control over what you buy and accumulate in your own home and what you place in front of your eyes. The word says, don't put anything that's wicked in front of your eyes. That is not only things that are profane, like pornography, unsavory things, but it's also watching people like that. There's a lot of people I used to watch I won't watch anymore because they're just filth. Like it's just filth, and it's disgusting. And the only thing they're doing is constantly talking about someone else. Many times it's me, but when they get really, really vulgar, I can't watch that. Like I can't watch it. And if they talk in a way that, now don't get me wrong, I am capable of saying a cuss word. Okay, I know it's hard for you to believe, but I'm capable of saying it once in a while. Okay, and I have to repent for that. But I'm not out here saying vulgar things for the sake of being vulgar. It's not something I want to place myself in the audience of. So when I started removing myself from those types of things, I noticed that it had a huge impact on a positive way, where I don't have the anxiety, I don't have the uncomfortable uneasiness, and it allowed me to think about things on a more wholesome level. And when you're balanced and your life is like that, illness is rare. Your, I guess your body allows it. It allows you to rest. You sleep better. You just, I don't know. I guess all around your life just gets better because you're not constantly trying to figure out what the next thing's going to be, and you can't control it. So that's why I'm glad I never got involved in the voting, because when I was younger, I was very, very opinionated, and I had to have my way. Okay, they named streets after me, one way, and if you weren't doing things the way I wanted it, I had nothing to do with you. And if I were to vote, like let me put it this way: if I would have voted in 2020, say I was a Trump supporter and I was voting Republican and I participated in it, I would have been, as a younger 20-year-old, 30-year-old Michael, I would have been nuts, raging constantly online, raging about it. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful that God took that interest away from me early on, when I had lots of people in my family trying to influence me into being a voter. My Uncle Stan, who sowed the first seed in trading, in my mind, 13, 14 years old, he was a Democrat. And growing up, watching Michael J. Fox on a sitcom and thinking he was the coolest thing around. In that show, I'm a Democrat. I'm a Democrat. So I think to myself, well, when I get older, I'm going to be a Democrat. So what was I doing? I was falling in line with the computer programming that they do. And that's what movies are doing today. They're sowing this woke mentality, this victimhood mentality. And if you have an opposing view, somehow you're racist, somehow you're a bigot, somehow you're just, you need to be exterminated. And to me, they can kiss my ass. I don't care about your woke bullshit. I don't care about your opinion. There's two genders, and if you have a problem with that, that's your fucking problem. That's your problem. It has nothing to do with me. But no one's convincing me. When everything started, it wasn't Adam and Steve. Okay, it was Adam and Eve. Okay, I don't care how you slice it. Okay, your great parents was a man and a woman, and you should be thankful that that's how it was, because that's the only way your relatives, no matter how far you want to go back, whether you're black, white, yellow, Asian, brown, whatever you are, okay, we're all coming from the same two people. Okay, that one man and that one woman. That's how it started. And there ain't nobody better than anybody else because of their race. That's the way it was. I don't care if Adam was black and Eve was bone white. I don't care. Or vice versa. I don't care what their colors were. That's where we all came from. That's where we came from. We all got a little bit of black in us. We all got a little bit of Asian in us. We all got a little bit of whatever it is. We're all mixed up. We're all mixed. We all came from those two people. But you get tied up in this tribal mentality, black and white, Muslim, Christian, Republican, Democrat, woke, not woke. I'm not going to put myself in that horseshit. I'm not going to do it. But I'm not going to make up some nonsense to try to fit in either. I'm going to say what I believe is factual, it's truthful, and it's not meant to be argumentative. But I'm also going to defend my position and say, I'm not going to think like someone that has mental illness. And I'm not going to champion people that have mental illness. I'm not going to lift them up and say that they're worth following and look their pillars of the community because they have a mental illness. Because that's what is on today. And that's how we got ourselves in this situation. So when you look around, I know I'm getting cussed out right now. I'm unsubscribing this asshole, blah, blah, blah. Whatever, man. Okay. I'm not here for that. I'm being real. We're having conversation. If we were out going about town and you were friends with me and we're sitting here having a drink or whatnot, I don't drink alcohol, but we were having a drink and we just got on a conversation and I was your friend, you're my friend, I would feel comfortable talking like this way with you, knowing that you see me as your friend. And my friend can have a differing opinion about something, and it doesn't change that friendship. It just means that, hey, they see it differently than I do. But because they're my friend and I love them, I can tolerate their indifference to what I believe in. Because it isn't going to change how I live, and I'm not going to change how they live. I'm a practical person. I know what I believe in, and I understand that people are going to have different views. If you want to go and sleep with the same sex and have a lifestyle like that, I know enough that I'm not going to change that. I'm not going to have any influence over that. But I don't like the idea that when I grew up, everybody, we would go to comedy clubs, okay? And when the comedians would talk about gay, lesbian, queer, blacks, white, everybody in the audience was a part of these categories of people: white, black, gay, queer, bisexual, whatever it is. Okay. We were all in the audience. And no matter what that comedian would say, we would all be laughing our asses off. Laughing our asses off. Everybody had a sense of humor. Nobody took it personal. We all understood that, hey, you might sleep with somebody different. Okay. And you may choose to live your life a certain kind of way. But you know what? Heterosexualism wasn't shoved down your throat every day. Gays didn't shove it down our throats every day. They weren't trying to go into schools and convince little children that this is a normal thing, no matter what you are, heterosexual or queer, lesbian, gay, whatever. Children shouldn't even be exposed to that at all. Why would you bring someone that young into a conversation about something that's like an adult conversation, sexuality? That's perverse. There's something inherently wrong about that. And in Generation X is what I'm part of. We were the last give a fuck generation. We cared about each other. We could get along with everybody. Okay. Comedians could talk about blacks and the blacks would love it and laugh about it. And they would talk about whites and we would laugh and we'd all love it. Okay. Gays and lesbians would get cracked on all the time and they would be pissing themselves in the comedy clubs right next to us. And we would not walk out of the club afraid that they were going to bust us up upside the head or stab us because we laughed at a joke. Everybody nowadays is so full of shit. They have a problem. They have an inherent problem that's a you problem, not a me problem, not an us problem. It's a you fucking problem. There's something wrong with you in the way you think because your head's too far up your own ass. You have no sense of humor. You take everything literal. You take everything as an attack. And you have no other way of except this is going to be my way. And if you're opposed to that, F you. Something needs to be done to you because you don't look at it my way. And that's what's wrong with today's world, man. Like the level of entitlement, like we didn't expect anything for free. We worked our asses off for everything we got. We worked our asses off. But you today, if you got to wait 5 fucking minutes to get anything given to you, you waited too long. It's 2 weeks fucking late. You should have already given this to me for free. You're an asshole because you made me wait. Man, that would have never flown in my generation. We don't think that way. We didn't think that way, man. It was alien to have that mindset. But that's what you see all around the world today, right now. Everywhere. You owe it to me. The fuck I do. I don't owe you shit. Nobody owes you anything. Nobody owes you anything. But when you elevate these people that think this way, and then you tell them from a position of leadership that you're right to think this way and get out there in the streets and protest and defend that position. What are you doing? You're weaponizing someone that is literally a loose cannon. They don't see it that way. They see it as, see, our leadership gets us. They understand us. And the people with common sense around them are thinking, what in the hell is going on? The patients are running the asylum now. That's what's going on. Nobody wants to say it, but that's exactly what's going on. And it's meant to destabilize every nation. They're going to bring in individuals. And I'm going to say this, and I think, the students of mine that are Muslims, they already know my stance on that. I'm not going to be a Muslim. You will never convince me to be one. But I can tolerate the fact that you are in that faith. I know me as a person, I can't change that. If you were asking me, would I love to see you put your faith in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? Absolutely. But like I said, I'm a practical person. I am aware that I have no power and I have no influence to make that happen. That only happens from God, period. But I think that when all the nations around the world are importing Muslims who are by very nature, they're very proud individuals. They're very strong-willed individuals. They're very confident. They think they're right. Everybody else is wrong. And I'm not saying any of this is a bad thing inherently. I mean, if you feel strong about your convictions and about what you believe in, then sure, everyone should feel that way, right? I just don't agree with who they believe is God. I don't believe that anything they talk about in terms of the Quran, God, their idea of God, at the afterlife or how you get there, all that stuff. I'm opposed to all that. But I'm not going to belittle them because I don't agree with them. I identify the divergence between the two faiths, Christianity and Islam. But I don't want to alienate them as a student because I'm not here as a preacher. I'm here as a man that's sharing something that I feel gifted. And you came here for that. You didn't come here to learn to be a Christian. You didn't come here to learn my political persuasion. But because I had so many people asking me to talk about these things, that's why we're here today talking about them. Okay. So, but when you start importing the strongest willed, aggressive ideology, that is Islam, when you start importing them in all these nations, UK, Ireland, United States, what do you think the outcome is going to be? Are you surprised that you're seeing all these things happen? Because Islam is not taught to its believers to go in and assimilate anywhere. It's taught to take over. It's taught to spread their form of religion, and everybody should submit to it. And if not, you're a problem. You either convert or you got to go. But they're the guests here. Okay? The guest doesn't get to come to the house and set the rules. And in my opinion is, they know this by bringing them in here, in every nation. Now, am I against Muslims, moving into other countries by immigration legally? No, absolutely not. Do they have the right to have their mosques and whatnot? Sure, they have the rights. I don't think it's appropriate for them to be blowing that prayer thing 5 times a day early in the morning. Because I'm going to be honest with you, and this might sound disrespectful, but if that was going on in an area where I lived at, I would have speakers on the roof of my house playing Van Halen as loud as these things would play. And I would drown out that thing. Okay. I wouldn't go over there and cut the wires and do those types of things, but I would literally, Van Halen would be wailing the entire time. 2 minutes before it and 2 minutes past the length of it. That's how it would be. And if that upsets you, go back to the point of what I mentioned earlier. Every one of us has the right to have a differing opinion. You look at me as someone that believes Jesus is God in the flesh, and you don't think that that's true. I don't care if you don't believe it. That's not your belief has no bearing on what I believe. It doesn't. It has no bearing. And I'm aware that my belief has no bearing on you. Which one's intolerant? Which one's tolerant? So when you bring, let's just take Christianity out for a second. We'll bring it back in a second, but let's take it out for a second. All these nations are having this influx of Muslims coming into their country, and they're giving them free rides, subsidies, healthcare they don't have to pay for. What's your healthcare cost? Let me tell you something. Healthcare is so expensive right now. That was by design. That's how Obama got all of his money. It ain't the book sales. The book sale, the books is the illusion. That's where he made his money. No, it ain't. He's getting all the kickbacks from Big Pharma because he allowed them to run up all these big, huge premiums through Obamacare. You can keep your doctor. Sure you can. Lies. Lies from the guy who forged a woman's Hawaiian birth certificate. Oops, I said it. But the bottom line is this. If you look at what they're doing, they're bringing these people in by the bus loads and plane loads, setting them up with free everything, allowing them to do whatever they want to do, say and act the way they want to act. But anybody that does anything opposed to them, they're the problem. You don't think that that is the goal here in the United States? In every other country? That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. But you are not allowed to say anything about it because you are a troublemaker. You're a rabble rouser. You are racist. You're this, that, and the other thing. And the only thing we're saying is who are you? And why the fuck do you get to have everything for free? And why is it your way and nobody else gets any say in the matter? I got a problem with that. And it wouldn't matter if you were Muslim, Hindu, Christian, whatever. I'd have a problem with it. And it's not a problem for me to see everyone else's problem with it as well, because it's justified. Nobody should be getting a free ride. Nobody. I think welfare should last 1 year and then you get the fuck off of it by force. If you can't get a job, you can't get your shit together, and you get another kid, you're pregnant, knocked up by somebody else, you should have your shit cut off immediately and on a list that you never can get it again. What motivation is there for you to ever make strides to be independent and do gainful employment on your own? If you get your rent for free, you get your food for free, you get your cell phone for free, you get your health care for free, and you're rewarded by getting pregnant again by a man living in the house that you say left you. See, being in real estate all the time. All the time. Section 8 is abused like crazy. But when you allow and you import these types of individuals into our country and you set them up with that mindset, say, here's what you can do. And then we're expected to pay $3,000 a month for healthcare, for a good healthcare plan, covering all your family members. And then you still won't have that company pay out anything because you have to meet a deductible of $10,000 a year before they start paying anything. That's some bullshit. That's some bullshit. But they get a free ride, they get to have everything, and they have better coverage too. Come on, man. What is it meant to do? It's meant to have people pissed off. And what are they going to be pissed off about? The person receiving it. So what are they doing? They're engineering class warfare. I hate those Muslims because they get to get everything for free. They're only getting what they're given. They're not taking it by force. They're not taking it by force. It's given to them. Just like the people that abuse welfare here before they started doing that stuff. They're taking what they're given. And they're rewarded to live that way because that's the Democratic voters' base. There's got to be two sides, folks. If there isn't two sides, they can't keep us divided. And that's what it's all about. But I suggested people to read Albert Pike's Three Wars letter. Now, if you research it long enough and deep enough, you're going to see that people are going to kind of try to say it was forgery because it uses words like Zionism and fascism, which didn't exist then. That's some bullshit. That's some bullshit. Okay. That is for you to think, oh yeah, this is contrived. It's all made up, and it's a conspiracy theory. You know, they said that UFOs were real March 2020. They came out and the government said it's real. We don't know what it is. At the height of the scamdemic of COVID, they put that out there. Any other time, I'm convinced that the stock market would have crashed on that. But they just threw that out there. And now we have people coming out. They're doing congressional hearings and listening to people in our military with eyewitness accounts. They have video footage. They literally have a Hellfire missile hitting one of these things. It breaks a part of it off. It never misses a beat. It starts following the main piece in flight. Now, I'm not saying ET exists. I'm not saying that. I don't believe that exists. But I do believe it's angelic and demonic. So we're seeing things that we can't replicate that. We can't do these things. We can't move like that. But that used to be a conspiracy theory, like Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, and ghosts and whatever, not, whatever it is that you want to call a conspiracy theory. We are in a time where most conspiracy theories have now been proven fact. So when you look at the information that's in Albert Pike's three letters, what he's outlining is the whole basis of the three world wars. And the third one, it pits Christians versus Muslims. I'm not supporting the idea that Christianity should war against Islam and Islam shouldn't war against Christianity. But by its nature, Christians cannot accept what Islam promotes. It can't happen because they say Jesus wasn't God. They say that he wasn't crucified. They're not saying anything that is the pillars of Christianity, his death, burial, and resurrection. I mean, that's it. Without it, there's no hope. And Islam stands up in opposition to that. And it came 500 plus years after the fact. So I'm not listening to some Johnny come lately gospel. I'm not going to hear that. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's too far late. And honestly, it's something that is 100% diametrically opposed to the message and gospel of Jesus Christ. So period. End of story. That's why, as a Christian, and every Christian that understands the whole pretense of Christianity would never accept Islam, ever. If they really understood what the word says, they would never do that. They would never listen to any other false god. They would never listen to any other color religion. They wouldn't do it. And Islam is taught to them to say there is no other God but Allah, and there is no this, that, and other thing. Okay, great. But I'm just going to say this. Look at Isaiah 14, and you're going to see there's Allah. Look at the Hebrew, and it'll right there. I will be like the Most High. I will ascend like the Most High. Look at that in the Hebrew. That's Allah. Oops. So yeah, Lucifer has that book. That's it. And I can't subscribe to that. I can't do it. So I don't worship the created. I worship the creator. And when you have the last letter that Albert Pike wrote outlining what the third world war is going to be, the main players are Muslims versus Christians. Now watch this. When you study the book of Revelation, and then you study the end times eschatology of Islam and Christianity, they dovetail perfectly. Not because Islam's correct. It's because it's juxtaposition and diametrically opposed. The roles of the players in the book of Revelation are the same perspective that Islam holds, but who they see as their Al-Mahdi is the Antichrist through the lens of Christianity. Now, it's too much to go on. There's too much to go on in terms of breaking that down. But I can do this if you want to see it. And it'll be very clear, very, very, very clear why Albert Pike and the Masons have this view of bringing that together, because they're the two fastest growing monotheistic religions. Judaism is what it is. Nobody's looking around the world and saying, you know what I want to start doing? I want to be a Jewish believer and start believing Judaism. Nobody's doing that right now. Okay, nobody's doing that. Not in the last 20 years. They're not doing it either. But what two religions are doing it? Some people are converting from Islam to Christianity. Some Christians that don't know their scriptures are converting to Islam. Vice versa. Okay, but those are two fastest growing religions globally. That's not by mistake. It's not by accident. Okay. The book of Revelation talks about things that if you study the original language, you'll see symbols in Old Testament prophecies relating to the end times. And they are all pointing to anything apart from Islam. It doesn't fit, but it fits perfectly with Islam. Now, I'm not saying here's the part where if you are a Muslim, you're getting greatly offended by what I'm saying. In fact, your blood's probably boiling right now. I'm not saying these things to infuriate you. I'm causing you, hopefully, enough interest to research what I just stated. Don't think that you're right and I'm wrong. Don't just, because the Bible says this, and I think it's pretty evident in just the common sense perspective. If someone answers a matter without looking into it, checking the facts, they're a fool. Just because I say something and you think you're right, that shouldn't be the end of the conversation. Or if you're a supporter of me, just because I say it doesn't mean that you should just listen to what I say and say, well, take it on his own merit of being Michael. He wouldn't lie to us about that. I'm a man. I could lie. I could be deceiving you. Don't listen to what I'm saying. Look into it. It's fascinating. If you're a Muslim, it's going to be fascinating for you to look at the end time parallels, but where they break apart, they still fit together in a way where each side thinks they're right, but only one of them is going to be right. Only one of them is going to be right. But what is Islam's goal? Global domination. They want Islam everywhere. As Christians, we preach and share the gospel, but we also know that we have been given free will, and we're not going to win everybody. Islam, their mentality is they're going to be everywhere. They want total domination. And that's what that fourth and dreadful beast in Daniel that shows up again in Revelation, that's what it's describing. It's Islam. Islam is in the Bible, but it ain't recognized for the things that Islam wants it recognized for. And a lot of Christians don't even see it. A lot of pastors don't even see it because it's not politically correct to talk this way. Because Muslims, admittedly, I understand, if I was coming at them in a very disrespectful, meant to be demeaning, meant to be villainous, then obviously I could see how, they could be offended. I'm trying to inspire you to prove me wrong. Just the same way I did with trading. I want you to listen to what I just said. If you're a Muslim, or if you're just morbidly curious, you're not a Christian, you're not a Muslim, but you just want I want to see this guy be proven wrong. Go in with that moxie, go in with that attitude, that perspective. I want you to go in there looking at it, because when you see it, you can't unsee it. It's obvious, and it's not by accident. See, Masons, I had an opportunity to be a Mason, and once I looked into it a little bit more, I was like, hell the fuck no. No way. Absolutely not. Because whether you understand it or not, Mr. and Mrs. Mason, okay, you're worshiping Lucifer. Period. End of story. That's it. You're a Luciferian. That's what you're doing. And you can't serve two masters. The Lord Jesus Christ is the only master. He's the only Lord. He's the only God-man. He's the only creator that was manifest in flesh. That means the angels finally saw him, and we beheld the face of God. You can't serve him and serve who he created, which is Lucifer. And that's what Masons do. That's what they do. Every president has to be a Mason. Did you know that? Why is that? Albert Pike was a 33-degree Mason. And that Third World War, you can see all the chess pieces come together. Where are they importing Muslims in every country? What's happening when they get there? They're trying to take over. They're causing a ruckus because they believe they're supposed to be doing it. That's what their religion tells them to do. So you can't really fault them because they're brainwashed at an early age. This is what they're supposed to believe. So I'm not trying to say, these are terrible people. I think they're just misguided. But they're being used as pawns, just like the Christians today are going to be used as the other side. It's going to be an extreme version of Republican versus Democrat, but on the global stage, because Republican and Democrat is just isolated to and limited to just the United States. So there's no real there's no Democrat and Republican in the UK and in Ireland and other countries. Okay. But they're migrating these chess pieces into every country. So that way we as a citizenry, whether we're Christian or not, we start looking at them and we start building animosity. You're getting all this stuff for free. You're taking advantage of us. You're beating us down. Let me tell you something. Anybody that takes advantage of the taxpayer's dollar is a piece of shit to me. Okay? I said it. I don't give a fuck what you think about. I don't care what your feelings are about it either. Okay? You're a fucking thief. Okay? You're a thief. You need to go to jail. You need to pay for those crimes. But when there are individuals that are brought here and they are coddled, enabled, and protected, it's not just a crime that they did. It's the leadership, it's the law, the judges, the prosecutors, all of them have a stake in it. And my opinion is there's no fixing that. So where are we at? We're teetering on that precipice of, once we fall over, it's going to set things into motion where it's going to be violent. Like, it's going to be violent. Look at Minnesota right now. Look at when George Floyd whole thing happened. Okay. Every time there's a chance for them to use destabilization, civil unrest, they run with it. They run with it. They weren't doing those things when Biden was in office. Why? Because they had control. They were in a seat causing the things in motion, putting in things in motion like that, so that with the conservative side would hate them, build up more animosity. And then when their side was feeling strong and making fun of the MAGA group, they lose. So now they're going to go crazy and piss and moan and go out in the street, because the left will do that. They'll go to work for that, but they're not going to do anything that makes the country better. But their myopic view of reality keeps them from being, in my opinion, upstanding citizens, because they expect everything for nothing. Everybody should be equal when we're not equal. There was not one person on this fucking planet that would have been able to say they worked harder than I did trying to figure out what these markets do. I gave my everything. Everything. So no, there's nobody else out there that did more work than me. And anybody else that comes along and says, yeah, well, I'm going to teach SMC concepts and blah, blah. You don't have the authority, bitch. You didn't earn it. You don't know them. You don't know it. And that's why I talk the way I talk. It sounds narcissistic because you're an entitled little bitch that you think is owed to you. And you can just move on in and set up shop. No, you don't get to do that. No, I'm not going to let you do that. No, I'm not going to stay silent and let you bitch over people and screw them over and talk to them in Telegram and pretend to be me and ask for money. That's why I come here all the time. And I sound like a broken record. I don't need your fucking money. Okay? That's what separates me from all of you other motherfuckers. You are all panhandling because you need the money. I don't need any fucking thing. And when I see people come into our country, in other countries, and they get a blank check to fuck everybody else over, and they're rewarded for doing it, I'll speak up and say that's fucking wrong. And I don't care if you like me or don't like me because of that. I don't give a fuck. Because I'm from Generation X, and that's how we roll. We don't give a fuck about your feelings. Facts over feelings is what it is. And that's where we departed. The generation after mine came in, coddled, tickled with a feather on its ass, promised things that they didn't deserve, didn't earn, didn't work for, built this level of entitlement. And they created this perfect storm where my generation, who's still here, we're watching all this stuff. We don't go out there in the fucking street and act like a fool. We don't do that shit, because we have common sense, know that doesn't do anything. We don't burn our own fucking neighborhoods down. We don't burn our own fucking businesses down. We don't victimize our neighbors. We don't do that shit. Retarded fucking ass clowns do those types of things. People that are uncivilized with no fucking common sense or IQ do those types of things. Or they're paid to do those things. Either way, that same coin is the same coin. One side or the other, it's still the same coin. It's ass backwards mentality. It's not positive. It doesn't build anything up. Its only purpose is to destabilize and play the counterparty of heel. Just like in wrestling, there's the bad guy, the heel, and there's the face, the good guy. That's the plot. That's the meta narrative between the opposition, the plot, the war narrative. And if that narrative is always implemented, you never see the story writer, because that's who's pulling all the strings behind the scenes. And that's who's profiting. That's who's hurting us. That's who's hurting us. When we're constantly bickering and fighting with this one and that one, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. I'm going to kill you for it. What? What? How did we jump from, I don't agree with you, you don't agree with me, you don't exist because you don't deserve to breathe anymore? And you don't think that's mental fucking illness? Like, that's lunacy. I don't agree with Muslim doctrine. I don't agree with Hindus. I don't agree with atheistic views, okay? I don't agree with Judaism. There's a lot of things about it that's wrong. But I don't look at them and say, you don't exist. You don't get to exist. You don't deserve to live because you don't believe that what I believe. That's monstrous to think that way. I can accept the fact that God in his infinite wisdom gave all of us free will. You don't have to believe in him. You don't have to. You don't have to keep his commandments. You don't have to believe what he said. This is the only way to get heaven. You don't have to believe any of that stuff. You don't have to. But when you stand in front of him, you have to accept the punishment for not having done so. That's the only have to that's in there. I'm not the judge, jury, and execution of people that want to disobey it. I'm just obligated to share it. Once I share it, it's on you. If God chooses to, not draw you any closer to him and give you any more faith because he's the author and finisher of your faith, that's his decision. It's not mine. Islam doesn't have the right to force itself on me and you. I don't have the right to force Christianity on any of you. Hindus don't have the right to force it on us or anyone else. Atheists have no right to be able to say there is no God and government, when our government was founded on the principles of the Bible. So no, you don't have a say-so in that matter. But it's funny how these Luciferians that are running every country right now, they want to remove all semblance of our founding fathers and how we formed this nation, which is on biblical principles. They don't let the Ten Commandments be posted in their government buildings. Up in Minnesota, you can walk in there and see that the Satanists have a plaque up there basically saying, thank you, Tim Walz, for allowing, Satanism to be, promoted in there, blah, blah, blah. And that's allowed there. You don't think there's a problem with that? It's say you're a Muslim. Do you have a problem with that? You should. You should. But how about the atheists? You have a problem with that? Because that's who they believe is God. They believe that Satan is the God. You have a problem with that as an atheist? Or is it just because Jesus is your real problem? So anyway, I was thinking to myself when I first started this, I didn't want to have a lot of time on here. And let me take a look at my phone and see if there's any reason to get off this. 2 hours and a half we've been talking almost. Let's go till noon, and then we'll kill it. I'm surprised my wife hasn't come in here and given me the evil eye. I'm not sure where I was going with today. Like I just wanted to hang out and talk with you, like we're friends, like we're family. Um, I'm sure I said some things today that probably offended some of you. And I'm not going to apologize for that, because I think that close friends should have very polarizing conversations every now and then, and let that friendship be tested. Let it be tested. Do you have a friendship? Do you have a relationship with me as your mentor where you can listen to me, share my views and my opinions? I'm not forcing them on you. Nothing I'm saying here is forcing it on you. But I'm also saying in the same vein that none of you have any influence over me. And that's okay. I still accept you as my student, and you should accept me as someone that gives their time to you. Whether you choose to accept the gift of the insights I share or see any value in it, it's up to you to decide that. Nothing brings you here except for your own want, your own morbid curiosity, or your desire to learn from me. Or you just bored like I was today. You just want to sit down and just yap, talk about things. And taking a look around the world and seeing all these things, like we're in a mess. Like, it's a mess everywhere. How about the folks in Ireland? Are you listening to me? I got students from Ireland. What's your view? And tell me what you see. And I'm not asking you to go in there and start berating Muslims and Islam's supporters and calling them out of their name or anything like that. But what do you feel about that? Do you see how this is being implemented? And they're being used as weapons. They don't even see it as such. They're just thankful that they can be accommodated the way they are. But they don't even realize they're being used as pawns. And Christian churches are being used as pawns too. They're setting this whole thing up for that third war that's going to be the two players. And the intent, if you read it, Albert Pike's outline was so that way both all Christians and all Islam supporters and Muslims are going to be killed because of this tension between the two. That's the goal. And then because they're the two largest, fastest growing monotheistic religions, then after that, once that's done away with, and every other form of religion, meaning all the lesser, Judaism, all the Hindus, everything will be attacked too. But they're going to war the two largest monotheistic religions. They're going to place them at odds with one another. But it's odd that that's what the Bible teaches how the end times are going to be. Look at Abraham's first son. I'm not talking about Isaac. God said that's his first and only son. But he had another son. Think about it. Where'd he go in the world? God said he was going to make him a great nation. Look at the Middle East. He did. He did. So that's the meta narrative from the beginning. They know that they were a son of Abraham and the first of Abraham. So their mindset about themselves is, in my opinion, justified. But God is God, and he said, Isaac is your son, your only son, meaning it was through the wedlock of Sarah and Abraham. And it was a promised son that God said he was going to give. Sarah told Abraham, go into his wife's servant and get her pregnant, like a surrogate. So she was trying to do it her way. She didn't want to wait on God. So that's religion. Okay, that's what religion does. I'm going to do it my way. I'm not going to trust God. God said he's going to do it, but I ain't got time to wait for God. I'm going to do it on my timing. Abraham, go do what you got to do. Give me a son. And then when God did what he said he was going to do, told Abraham, send Hagar and Ishmael away. Send him away. I don't want nothing to do with him. What did they do wrong? Nothing. They didn't do anything wrong. And that's why God blessed Ishmael. He made him a great nation. And that's all of the Arab nations in the Middle East. And you had this contention. That's why they have a problem with Isaac and Jacob. That's the original story. That's the beginning. That's the enmity between the seed. And that's how it ends. Because God said, I'm going to call the end from the beginning. As it was in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. There was contention. Jacob and Esau. Two brothers. Two different ways of doing things. See how the meta narrative keep repeating over and over and over again? Think about it. It's there. But the Muslim won't see it, and the Jew won't see it. Why? It's hidden from them. But they're going to be put at odds in the last days. The Jews are going to be crushed in the winepress of God in the last 3.5 years. And 2/3 of the Jews that's going to be on the earth then are going to die because of what God's going to do. And I'm sure a lot of Arabs and Muslims are thinking, yeah, can't wait to see it. But God said he's going to come to your nations first. And he's going to bathe his robe in blood. So I wouldn't be so quick with all that rah, rah, rah. But that's what Revelation says. And when you understand the players and the people and the countries that are involved, and you rightly divide it, that's what's coming. And everything is moving around on this world global chessboard. And it's right there for everybody to recognize and see if you know what you're looking for. And most people in churches and most pastors today, they don't know. They don't touch that book of Revelation because it's too subjective. And they don't want to be held to the accountability of knowing the entirety of the Bible, because to know Revelation, that means you have to know all of the Old Testament. And most pastors today, they only go into it for a business. Hi, Miss Piper. You're here to let everybody know you're happy to see me. Most churches today are ran by people that did the very least. This is to call themselves a pastor, so that way they can sell church memberships and 10% income from everybody, fleecing people that are unbiblical. Paying a pastor, not biblical. Come at me, bro, in the comments. I will whoop your rear end over that. Okay? It's not biblical. Just like tithing is not biblical anymore. It's not. I have people that go to churches. I have friendships with pastors. They will take odds at that, but they won't have adequate responses to the scriptures. They make it very plain. It's not subjective. It's not ambiguous. It's very, very plain. There is no tithing for the New Testament Christian. There is none. There is giving. There is absolutely giving. And it can be more than 10%. Oops. But as far as taking 10% of your gross income and giving it to a man that calls himself a pastor and lives his life like a celebrity, that's not biblical. He's supposed to be the lowliest of all of the people, the most largest servant of the congregation. You don't see that today. They got to be up there with security around them, driving in Bentleys, $1,000 ties, $5,000 suits or more, bragging about what God gave them from a materialistic perspective. That is absolutely alien to the Bible. That's a proud and haughty spirit. And they tell you you're going to go to hell unless you do it. They're going to hell. They're going to hell. They're heaping on things to the believers that they themselves wouldn't do. Where's their 10% of what they're earning their income? Where is that being paid to? Ask them that and listen to the crickets roar. So don't think I'm over here just whipping up on one side of the coin here. Christianity today ain't biblical. Most of these churches, if Jesus walked in them, They wouldn't even recognize him, but he'd be in there flipping tables over, whipping all of them, because they've turned his house of prayer into a den of thieves. What does that mean? What were they doing in there? They were buying and selling. That's not supposed to happen in the house of God. Outside, sure, but why was he calling them thieves? Because when people came there and they were buying their lamb, their turtle dove, their offering, their animal to shed blood for their sins to be pushed back for one more year, the people that were operating the scales, they had rigged it in such a way where the coinage, the money that was being used, they were cheating the people when they would be paying. So they had a lying scale. So not only were they buying and selling and merchandising in God's temple, they were doing it in a way they were cheating them. And that's why they're thieves. It wasn't just that they were merchandising in his house. They were stealing because the people were coming there with their hopes that, okay, I'm going to pay what I have to pay, but they were overcharging them. They were profiting off of the faith of the people that came there to have an experience with God. The same thing that goes on today in churches. And you wonder why I don't go to them. Because 90% of churches today, at least all around where I'm at, that's how they roll. That's how they roll. If I found a church that preached and taught the gospel as I've shared it, and I've only shared what the scriptures say, I'm not a pastor. I would never be a pastor. I'm not a prophet. I'm not anything. I'm not an evangelist. I believe I'm a teacher, not just in trading, but I everything in my life I've always taught everything. I like teaching. I love seeing the faces of people that I can touch, illuminate because they've learned something. And they're like, I can't wait to do this in my own hands. And they show later on, this is what I'm able to do since you taught me. Look what I can do now. What did I do? I inspired them to be a creator, something that is not just consuming somebody else's stuff. Now they have the power to create in their own hands, and they can inspire other people. That's a gift that keeps on giving and over and over and over again. If I could find a church that a pastor did not live off the laity, that means live off the money that they bilk off of the people that go to church, had a job, had a career. Oh, but you don't understand, because I know some of you are Christian pastors listening to me. You don't understand. Don't talk about things you don't understand. I'm a pastor. I got to have my time free and available because somebody gets sick. I got to go to the hospital and I got to do this and I got to do that. Yep. I understand that. Bible says, let every man bear his own ministry by his own hands. Paul was the apostle to the Gentiles, and he preached the gospel of Jesus Christ, just like every other apostle did. And he made his money by making tents. He was a tent maker. He told them plain and simple, thank you for getting the money together when I come and visit, but it's not out of necessity. You don't need to. I appreciate what you're doing, but it's not out of necessity. Find that being taught in the church today. You won't see a pastor touch that, man. Because that unravels, because they know the common folk don't read and study the Bible. They don't do that. And the emails I'm getting from people that have gone to churches and been Christians for a long time, they're saying, I have never seen the Bible taught this way. And I've been a Christian for X amount of years, blah, 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 blah. I know. But I don't want to spend my time beating up on everybody because it's not edifying. But when you see it and you recognize it for what it is, it's refreshing, isn't it? It's like a breath of fresh air. It's like, wow, I really want to be in the Word now. Contrast that with you showed up on Sunday, or maybe you're Christian and Easter Christians, 2 times a year Christians. You show up in your best duds. You dress up in all your good clothes, your church clothes. Make you feel like you're rich. You don't want to be embarrassed by going in there in church and not looking like you can afford the finer things in the world. You show up and you hear the message. All right, Sing a couple songs, stand up. All right, it's that time now. We got to give unto the Lord. Give cheerfully and generously. 10% and 5% minimum offering. Shall a man rob God? You don't want to rob God, do you? Well, how are we robbing God? Well, Malachi says, God said, you robbed me in tithes and offerings. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means give 10% of your gross income. That means before taxes, because it ain't right that the government gets their cut first and then God gets the leftover. So you got to give it off the gross, because then they tax you. It's taxing on the gross. So what are you going to do? You're going to give me 10% of your gross income, and you're going to give me 5% of a love offering, because that means you really cheerfully giving, because God loves a cheerful giver. And if you don't, you're robbing God. So what's that make you? That makes you a thief. And where's a thief go when he dies? He goes to hell. And that is twisting scripture, because Malachi is talking about how the priests were not allowing the food welfare system, which is what tithing was. It was not money. There was no food for the widower, the widow, the vagabond, the destitute, those in need. If they came to the priest and said, we're hungry, we need something, they wouldn't have it to give to them. So how are they robbing God? By not having instituted what he ordained as a welfare system for those people that were in lack. And it was always food. He did not say, go to the priest and get some money. Go there if you're hungry. Put it in my storehouse. So that way there's meat in my storehouse. So that way when they come and they ask for it, you have it in abundance to give to them, and I get the glory because I told you to do it and you were obedient. You're obedient. That is not money. That's not money. You can't eat money. Study it some further, and you'll see that when the tithe that you were going to give, if it's too much to carry and you have a long journey before you can get there to leave it there, God said, sell it for money. And then when you arrive to where you're getting, go and buy everything that your heart desires, and you and your whole household eat it and be joyful before the Lord. Find a pastor teaching that. It ain't going to happen. They can't get their Benz. They can't get their Rolls Royce. They can't live lavish on that. They got to twist you into hellfire fear, or they can't extort that money from you. That's biblical, folks. That's biblical. And I found that out the hard way, because I used to tithe and I used to pay offerings and I supported overseas ministries and all these other people. And I did it gladly. And then when I went in to defend a friend, to give him encouragement that, listen, just do the best you can. And then I discovered it isn't biblical. Imagine that bitter pill. Yeah. And I went and sat with the pastor and the associate pastor. And I said, I got something I got to talk to you. This is pretty worrisome for me. I'm not stupid. And I'm looking at this, not just on the superficial text, but I went to the original language, and what you're talking about, it don't hold water here. That dog don't hunt. So you're running this like a business. Well, it is a business. Well, I understand it's a business, but it ain't supposed to be ran like a business. It's supposed to be a welfare program that you're not supposed to profit off of. Hello. God is robbed of the glory of meeting the needs of people when they have a genuine need. Ask these pastors to help you feed your house when you're short on money and you can't make your bills. Look at their face when you ask them. That'll tell you everything you need to know. They care more about building these big monstrous churches, these big, huge monstrosities of buildings, that God doesn't care anything about. But that's their retirement plan. You pay that off for them. And when they want to retire, they sell the church building and they have all the proceeds to live off of. And the whole time, they didn't have to pay taxes. I believe that every church should be taxed. It's a business. I have businesses and I have to pay taxes. Hello. Oh, I don't like what you just said. I'm a pastor. I don't care. I don't like what you do. It ain't biblical. You better get right because you're the one robbing God. That's what Malachi's talking about. You're robbing God because people are coming to you and you're lying and telling them, unless you give 10% of your gross income to me, what are you doing with that money? Well, you don't understand. I pay for this and I pay for that. No, 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 no. What are you doing with that money? You're buying stuff. And that stuff is the same thing that God told that rich young ruler to get rid of and sell it and give it to the poor. And what that young rich ruler do? He walked away sad. And Jesus said to everybody else watching, see that? It's real, real hard for a rich person to get into heaven because of that mindset right there. Because they care about theirs. And theirs is yours in their eyes. Now, I'm not saying, I know some of you are like, well, Michael's telling me I should stop going to church. I didn't say that. I did not say that. I'm just saying, consider who you're giving to and under what pretense are you giving it? When I gave it cheerfully. But I can't give cheerfully when I realize it's not biblical. Did I stop giving? No. I just changed where I was giving. I find people that I can see in front of me, there's lack. They're not asking me because they don't look at me and see, oh, wow, he's got millions of dollars. Let me go take advantage of him and ask him. Let me trick him. Let me put a homeless sign in front of me and he'll give me all the money. No. I can see they have a need. I can see it. And without being prompted or asked, I help them. Go through a grocery store. Go there for the express purpose, not for you to bring home anything, but to go there and find someone and read their face. Look around. They have the smallest cart. They don't have the big cart. They have the smallest cart. They have the smallest thing of milk, the smallest carton of eggs, but they have a wedding ring on. They're not by themselves. They have one thing of ground beef, 2 cans of vegetables, maybe a loaf of bread, and the smallest condiment of mayonnaise, ketchup, or whatever. What are they doing? They're feeding themselves on what they have left after everything that they got coming in. And you know it by how they look on their face. They're not walking around head up, smiling. How you doing? Greeting everybody. Their heads down. Their face full of sorrow. They're broke. And then what I do is I walk up behind them when they're in the checkout line. And I motion to the person working the cashier. And I tell them, pointing to myself, I'm paying. They bring it all up. And I step right in front of them rudely. And I put my credit card in there. Put in my Super Saver phone number. That way I get the discounts. And then they look at me like I'm crazy. Some of them cuss at me and say, what the hell you think you're doing? And I say, it's paid for. Have a good day. And I go walk back into the grocery store and I find somebody else to do it to. And sometimes they grab a hold of me and they squeeze the life out of me because they're like, you're a godsend because I don't have the money to do this. And you just did something that I know I got something from God. And that makes me go back in and find more people to do it. That's tithing. That's giving cheerfully. That's what God honors. God loves that. And I'm telling you, not because I want glory and fame and accolades for it. I'm telling you to inspire you to do that. Listening to me and learning how to make money and spending it on stupid shit for yourself is the worst thing you can do with the gift. That's the worst thing. That's wasting it. That's wasting it. Imagine how many people's lives you could change just by saying, I don't need to buy that car. I don't need to go on social media and get people to, fluff me up because I bought this overpriced junk. I want to go out there and I want to say, here, I don't know who you are. I clearly see you have a need. I don't want anything from you except for the opportunity to do what I feel like I need to do, and have a great day and be blessed. You have no idea what that feels like. I promise you, all the sports cars and all the fun little toys you can buy, that stuff wears off the next day. It's gone. Once all your friends and the people that know you, once they see you have it, that wad is now shot. It's done. You got the best out of all that's ever going to come from that, because they don't care that you really have it anymore. In fact, they're looking at you thinking, what a jerk. He probably thinks I'm supposed to love him because he has that car. You're stupid. You spent all that money. I would have done this, that, and the other thing. So they're not looking at you like you want them to look at you. But meet somebody's needs and let it be a stranger that didn't even have to ask you for it. And look at their face and listen to their voice shake when they tell you, thank you so much. That's stuff you carry for your whole life. You're going to forget all the, ooh, wow, what a nice car. I wish I could have that. I want to be like you. Look at what you're wearing. That shit is fleeting. I remember every one of these individuals' faces because I know at that moment I was being used. I was implementing a principle that God has laid in the hearts of believers, but many of them don't act on it. And I promise you, if you live your life like that and you do things like that, God will never allow you to run short on the supply, because he's getting the glory for it. He's getting it, not you, not me. He is. And man, that is such a reward. It is a reward. There's no ego there. It's about me. There's no selfishness, but you taste real love. You taste appreciation. You feel generosity in its purest form. And then you watch this person weep, and the cashier, they're weeping, and then you can't take it anymore, and then you're weeping. And you feel good. It feels so good. And it's infectious. It makes you want to do more of it. And the next time you see that cashier, they start smiling. You know right away what they remember. And you just sit and wait because they're going to say it. It was awesome watching you do that. And I did the same thing right after that. The next weekend when I got paid, I found somebody that did the same thing. It felt amazing. How about that? How about that? That's church. That's living Christian life. That's giving. That's the real tithe. But you'll never see that taught because it doesn't allow them to live a lifestyle that was never promised them as a pastor. If I had one wife, which I don't, I'm divorced. I had one marriage in the beginning that I did for the wrong reasons, but it was in my heart. I felt like I was doing the right thing. But because of infidelity, which the Bible says I can divorce for, but I don't believe we're allowed to remarry and not be in sin. So while I am remarried and I was born again after being married, I don't believe I meet the criteria to be a pastor. When I was younger, I had every aspirations until I read in the Bible that I don't have that right. So it kind of like knocked me down a little bit. Didn't take away the steam and the inspiration to want to share God's word, but it took away the reality that I can't be one. So at the time, I wanted to be a pastor like this, where I didn't live off of the laity. I didn't ask for their money. I was going to pay for the lighting. I was going to pay for all of the costs. So that way when people came, they heard the word of God and they felt no burden. They had no expectation except for come there and worship the Lord. Hear the word, make a joyful sound, lift up your hands, praise and worship, pray, lay hands on other people, and let the gifts of the Spirit run. Leave changed. Leave prepared for the new week. Feel edified, filled up, inspired, taught what the word of God says. That's what I'm looking for in a church. And I can't find that. I can't find that. And the word says in the last days, there's going to be a famine in the land. And it meant the whole world. And it's not because it's a famine for food, but it's going to be the word of God. There's a lot of places out there call themselves churches, but they are not teaching the word. They're teaching prosperity. And who's prosperity? Who's prosperity? It's the pastors. He's the one living high on the hog. His wife is living high on the hog. But the lady's coming in there, paying out, expecting God to do some kind of miracle because he's promised, oh, you're going to do this? Sow a seed. Sow a seed, and the Lord's going to give you that house. Blab it and grab it. No, that's not biblical. And you wonder why so many people try Christianity that way and they don't stick with it. Because it's a false gospel. It's a false teaching. It isn't going to stand the test of time. And God's not in that. God's not in that. He never promised those things. So I answered a lot of questions today. A lot of questions that are unrelated to the market. So it wasn't all false advertising. I did talk a little bit about the markets in the beginning just to hook you. But I led you to church one more time, kicking and screaming. But I'll say this and I'm going to get off here because I actually I'm hungry. The study I'm working on now is on the tabernacle of Moses. And to me, it's a very fascinating study. I don't want to steal the thunder of what it is that I'm going to show in it, but I'm trying to come up with a way where I can go over the extreme details because you know how I am, right? I'm very detail oriented, and there's a lot of specifics around that specific structure. And if you want, you might want to look at those chapters in Exodus that deal with the tabernacle. Okay. And then when I get done with it, it'll probably take me about 2 hours to get through it. And it'll be kind of exhaustive. But I won't try to strip you of everything you can mine by studying on your own. But I promise you, it'll be so cool when you look at it. Because I love finding Old Testament things and bringing light to it where it's like, that is awesome. Like, that's neat. That's like, I wouldn't have saw that if I hadn't looked at it from that perspective. And when you see it like this, as I'm going to teach, it's just one of those things that makes you think, wow, I want to study more. And that's what's the inspiration for me doing that channel. Not only is it teaching people how to come to God in the right way biblically, but also how to revere and adore him in the study of his word, because it's fascinating. It's so fun. It's like a treasure hunt. And when you get in, you turn over all these rocks and you start thinking, wow, that's there? It's always been there like that? Yeah, it's always been there like that. And it's fun. And it's easy to be delighted by his word. It's just so fascinating. It's a rabbit hole that just keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper. And as you would expect, as the author, he can do those types of things. In a stale old book that people say this doesn't make any sense, it was written by a man, it keeps delivering deeper and deeper, layer upon layer. You can look at the same passages and go into them and see new depth, more insight, more manna, bread from heaven. So hopefully I've been, in a certain kind of way, entertained you, got you invested emotionally and psychologically to prove me wrong, inspire you to have a little bit of faith in humanity and not fall into the victim and trap that they're trying to have us fall into. Love your neighbor. It's everyone that's not you. They're going to do things backwards sometimes. They're going to look at things differently. But that doesn't mean war against them. It doesn't mean harm them. It doesn't mean threaten them. It doesn't mean go out in the street and break up their stuff or harm them. That's uncivilized. And I think that, unfortunately, we're going to see a whole lot more of that intensify. And when we get into spring and summer months, it's probably going to be off the charts. So I had some trips that may end up getting canceled if things start getting stupid. But I had time to talk with you today. I got overstepped my welcome because my wife is giving me that sign. I'm getting off now, hon. Okay, just give me a chance. I'm saying goodbye. That's what I'm saying to him right now. So I'm going to escape. I will wish you all a pleasant week. And when it comes to market commentary and whatnot, the second week of February, as I said, February 10th, that evening, I will resume with market reviews and commentary, and I'll start talking about it on a daily as it happens. So until then, I don't know when I'm going to talk to you again, but the next bit of business will probably be that Bible study on Berean study. And if I can get it done this week, I hope we'll have it up by Friday evening, this coming Friday. Until I talk to you next time, be safe and enjoy the weekend.